Hello. So last night I was getting my videos together for YouTube, and I realized when I was uploading my videos from Facebook to YouTube that I left my spiritual journey series hanging in the lurch since August, and my mom had actually reminded me of that as well. So as promised, I'm going to take it in chunks, and so the videos will hopefully be shorter and sweeter. And this is going to be the chunk about getting kind of into my head from 2008 to about 2015. I was in a sharp decline in my health, raising three toddler boys. We had just moved from being 45 minutes from my parents, my sister living in the same town, to living 12 hours from our family. My husband's family was 8 hours away. John worked an hour from home, and I was pretty much alone with three toddlers and very sick. So it was hard. I mean, I just didn't have any support that way. And I'm just going to say that there may be people that don't like what I have to say, and I'm totally okay with that. I have always been held a little different opinions or convictions than the common majority of my friends, and I'm okay with that too. Somehow our world has become so crazy that we have to have the same opinions, and to me that's boring, right? Some of my best and most treasured friends we have kind of an unspoken agreement that we agree to disagree. And for the record, some of those friends are some of my most challenging and fulfilling conversations. So I have a really strong faith. So that's where I'm speaking from, is from a point of faith. And I've experienced some pretty powerful stuff that no one can take away from me by telling me that it's not true. I have an open heart, and my experiences are mine to enjoy, but they're also, I believe, mine to share with anyone who will listen, especially those people who know and prayed for me, and to know how these prayers were answered. But to be 25 years plus down the road from the very first symptom I had, which was when I was 16 or 17, gives me an incredible look into my rearview mirror and the complexity to which I can see that my story was being written even then, where it has brought to me today, is completely divine. And just like in my last little video, I said I've always pictured my life to be like an orchestra, and God is bringing in the drums and he's bringing in the strings. And I feel like I have that luxury of that hindsight's 2020 now, to be able to see that yes, everything was being completely orchestrated in my life to get me to this very point, doing exactly what I'm doing. So some things are going to be from my blog. I went back through my blog that I started, so I may read a few things for a little bit, and I may talk about a few things. But basically around 2011, about 2011, I would say the perfect storm occurred. I was asked to share my testimony in our Sunday school. We had a brand new Sunday school that ended up being some of our most treasured friends. But at the same time, I was involved in a Bible study that challenged me to discover my purpose. And then within a few months of that, John and I listened to a sermon that was saying, challenging us to ask God for challenges. Because when we are challenged is when we seek prayer the most, right? Like when things are going great, I forget to pray or forget to spend time studying the word. And it was just basically, if you ask for challenges, you better be braced for challenges. So I personally was contemplating some heavy subjects. Starting with being asked to share my testimony makes my hands sweaty and my knees weak and my stomach drop. Like, I was not vocal. I know that's hard to believe about my faith. I had a strong faith, but I was not one to turn around and talk to people about it. If somebody were to say, please share your testimony, I would be hiding in the back. Please don't make me do that. Don't make me tell anyone, because I don't have anything important to say. I never felt like I had something that created a testimony. So I thought for a long time about what my story really was. I knew I had a strong faith. I grew up in a very close Christian family. We don't have vacations. We loved each other. My life was idyllic growing up. As a teenager, I had a level head. I never veered into trouble. I had lots of great friends. I played a sport successfully and thoroughly enjoyed junior high and high school. Same goes for college. I life was easy for me. And if I had challenges, they weren't more than I could handle. I mean, I can't even think of anything that I can point to as a source for any pain or suffering. I was truly blessed. I don't have a major life-changing experience, or so I thought. I've been told at that time by several people that I was lucky to not have had to experience those hard times, but I still didn't feel like I had a story or a testimony. And that always bothered me. So how can I share a testimony when there's nothing to share? It scared me to death. So right about the same time, I was doing this amazing Bible study with women that challenged everyone to find their purpose. And stating the obvious, I had 3 toddlers, probably all still in car seats at that time. And my purpose was to be a good mom, a good wife, a good friend, daughter, sister. But it really left me wondering what was my deeper long-term purpose in life besides just keeping my head above water, because that was really all I was doing, and I was barely doing that. So I thought about this for several weeks, and I finally came to the conclusion, I had an aha moment, that both my testimony and my purpose were related to the one great hardship in my life, and that was my health, that I hadn't shared with many people, that I had Crohn's disease. Not out of embarrassment, just I never wanted anybody to worry about me. I never wanted to be a burden to someone else. So I just didn't tell people. I had a lot of experience with stomach troubles, and at that point I was studying more homeopathic treatments. And more people were asking me questions because I was beginning to share a little bit more about what I thought. And I was spending so much time on the phone with their parents or with their sister or with their friends that I started a blog called My In Testimony. And I created it as a resource for my story because I found that I was repeating everything for food that I ate, for blogs that I read, for recipes that I use. It wasn't professional by any stretch of the imagination. It was just kind of a place to gather my thoughts so I could send people there and steer the questions. And around the same time, my husband and I heard a message about God, about asking God to challenge you. And I did an entire study one time on John 15, specifically John 15:5 says, I am the vine, you're the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And that verse really speaks volumes to me as far as what, just how we understand life. But basically, on a vineyard, the farmer very carefully prunes back any dead or dying leaves or branches in order to allow the good nutrients to stay in the plant. This allows the plant to bear more fruit. So to ask to be pruned, truthfully, is quite scary. At the time, I had no clue how scary it was. But it is trusting God and committing to his plan with blind faith. And it's knowing that the more fruit you bear, the more challenges you might receive. Knowing there's Satan who wants nothing more than for you to fail, and still persevering through those challenges, but also knowing that God is with you the entire way and will help you to reap a bountiful harvest. And I think at that point, I thought I was so sick that it couldn't get worse. I really think, okay, we can pray for challenges because I really don't think we can do much worse. And it's pretty, this is where it gets pretty thick, but I fully believe that while God allows hardships in our lives, I mean, read the book of Job. I read that on a daily basis during this time, but he is not the one performing the actual duties of hardship. It's Satan, and God only knows love. So God is love. God knows how far we can be tested in order to grow our faith and relationship with him. He allows those challenges to occur, but while those challenges he does allow to occur, he will turn those into lemonade. We just have to trust him and have faith in him. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that in all things God works together for the good of those who love them, who've been called according to his purpose. It is a huge, huge leap of faith to ask God to challenge you. It could be in your marriage, your friendships, your family, your health, your finances, all the big stressors in our lives. If you ask to be challenged, you better be braced for it. Why would anyone do that? It's crazy. That was my first thought. But as I said then, I think I was a little bit naive, thinking, oh my gosh, it's been so hard for us. I've been so sick. We've had to transfer. John's job is always really volatile. Never know if he's going to have a job or not. But as you grow in your faith, your desire is to become more, to be closer to God, to live for his glory, to share his promises. So how do you grow in your faith when you're living on easy street, really? When you aren't fully trusting in him on a daily basis. And fully trusting is where I got. But I know that when things are smooth for me, I forget to pray. But when things are hard, man, I am on my knees multiple times a day, begging for grace, for me, begging for healing and strength. God wants us to have that relationship with him, and he wants us to grow closer to him and depend on him. He wants us to seek him out on a daily basis. So dare I say that the challenges that we asked for is ultimately what we experienced. It's been building for years, and I had just reached the summit, and it's mean and it was nasty. It was extremely difficult for me and for my entire family. But together, our faith has grown immensely. And I would say that my relationship with John was probably the best it has ever been in that time, because we were constantly praying for my health. My children witnessed miracles that they watched how John and I dealt with our challenges. Friends and family prayed for me in ways they may have ever prayed before. I had friends tell me they've never prayed before, but they were praying for me. So who knows how that impacted them in the long haul. But if I asked for a challenge in my life, I got it. And this is my testimony that I never had. This is the purpose that I was too scared to tell. And it's to share what I've learned, seen, and felt, and receiving God's grace so that others can believe. I pray that no one has to go through what I went through pain-wise, but I pray that everyone gets experience once in their life that incredibly just immortal, divine feeling of a prayer being answered for you, like just that unique feeling. But I finally have that voice. And a friend during the midst of all this from college left these sweet words for me. She sent them to me, and it says, "Your wound becomes your treasure. Grace is more than you can imagine. And may my weakness become my witness." And I love that so much, because my weakness is certainly my witness, because I have major health issues. 2 Corinthians 12:9 became kind of my verse that kept me going while I was in the hospital. "But my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in my weaknesses, in my insults, in my hardships, persecutions, and in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." And that verse kept me going, because for one very big reason, everybody said to me, knowing how sick I was, I lost 40 pounds. I was a ghost. I was a skeleton, and I was still going. And people kept telling me, "Oh, Penny, you're so strong. You're the strongest person I know." And as kind as those words were from their heart, I hated them. I hated that. I didn't ask to be strong. I didn't ask to fight. I didn't ask to be going through what I was going through, but to do what you got to do. And so that verse basically spelled it out. When people saw me as strong, I was so broken and weak and exhausted and tired, ready to die on the inside during all my time that I had sepsis. But the strength that people saw in me was not me. It was not me, because I was broken. So be careful what you ask for. I encourage you to challenge yourself, but be braced for the storm. Praise him before the storm, in the storm, after the storm. The beauty that is that when the storm subsides, now I can look back and see how God's grace abounds. And I can't wait to share that part of my story, which is coming. But all the trials we face in life are ours for a reason. This is something that I've written in our blog, but that can be the little bitty things to the way big things. And this is me talking, I'm pretty sure, in about 2008 or 9. Trials are trials, and our process for getting through them makes us stronger. Whatever doesn't kill us make us stronger, right? Wherever they came from, God knows how to grow us, strengthen us, and arm us with truth, as well as make lemonade out of the lemons that we've been given. I do have one large lemon in my blessed life, and that lemon in my life is certainly my poor health. It was at this point that instead of keeping my illness to myself and not burdening others with my stuff, I started to share what I was going through. And man, did people come. In the last few years, I have learned so much about my disease, my healing, getting free from incredible amounts of pain and survival. I've learned who to trust and who doesn't know so much, and that's doctors, y'all. But I won't use their names. Through my dramatic change for the better in my health that my friends and family have witnessed, I have had oodles and oodles of friends and strangers ask me about my diet, what changed me, what helped me, and how they can either help themselves or a loved one. The people that have come to me have been mind-boggling, truly came out of the woodwork. People that need to talk to someone about their bowels. Everybody talks to me about their GI issues. Or even other illnesses. And evidently I am that someone, and I absolutely grew to love it. I have been through every procedure. Many of them I cried through, but I'm here to say that I did it and I survived it. And through those hard times, I discovered that I too have a testimony. It's been a long journey, but not a journey without hope. If I had known then what I know now, I would have saved an incredible amount of pain and heartache for me and my family. I would have prevented too many painful surgeries and recoveries to count. I wouldn't have missed one of my best friend's weddings or seen fear in my parents' faces when my first surgery didn't accomplish all that we hoped. I wouldn't have missed weeks of work or moved back home twice to be nursed back to health. I wouldn't have spent countless nights sleeping on my bathroom floor. Oh my gosh, the countless nights. I was so sick. I wouldn't have missed school programs for my kids because of important procedures or hospital stays, or been faced with my kids finding me in pain on the floor. That's hard. My husband wouldn't have missed work to take care of me. I wouldn't have missed days in my life while I fought through pain. I mean, John and I will say we had therapy. I felt like I was a lemon. I felt like that he'd been given a lemon for a wife, and I had a really hard time because I felt like my illness affected his job, and his job choices were, he was always worried about insurance for me or leaving work for me. It was really hard for us, not for us, but for me, because I felt like I was a burden. He never, ever made me feel that way. But if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have suffered nearly as much. But I also wouldn't have clung to my hope in God. I wouldn't have found myself praying desperately to be healed. And I mean desperately. And I wouldn't find myself here telling a story to all of you and those who suffer from Crohn's and trying to be a beacon of hope for anyone who suffers in any way, disease, emotionally, spiritually, whatever. But if I knew then what I knew now, where would the miracle be in my story? My dear friend Casey said something like this about another friend of hers that was going through some health struggles, and I never forgot it. But God provides healing for us when we ask. It can be earthly healing or even heavenly healing. God heals on his terms for his purposes. And that comment's one that really stuck with me because it really allowed me in a time when I thought we didn't know if I was going to survive or not, that I was prepared to not survive my illness, as hard as that sounds, because I didn't know if my healing was going to be an earthly healing or a heavenly healing. But these days, this is still from my blog, I just find myself praying to make it through a day, one day at a time, and I'm still here. I worry when it starts to affect me and how I deal with my boys, or when I'm just too tired to lift another finger and it's only 3 p.m. Unfortunately, of late, those days have been far too prevalent. I have life. I have a beautiful and healthy family. God has given me and my children the ability to talk, walk, see, and hear. We all have so much to be grateful for. Don't take for granted even one day of your life. We all have our roads to hoe, but we are here on earth for a very short time. Make the most of every opportunity. So the takeaway here is that God was weaving my story on so many levels since my first symptoms began. I saw specialists at amazing hospitals like Barnes in St. Louis, Mayo, and Rochester. That doctor told me I should be in a wheelchair, that my Crohn's was too severe. UT, the GI Specialty Center in Houston. I was a really sick girl. This isn't just a little disease that I was fighting. And now I can say that now in hindsight. When I was in the middle of it, I just plugged away, nose to the grindstone. But then I often wondered why my prayers weren't being answered. I had an army of prayer warriors praying for me all the time, to the point where I think I exasperated the prayer chain. Always felt bad when I had to go back in the hospital. But what I can see now is that I was a mom to 3 toddlers. I was living 12 hours from any family. I had a husband that worked an hour from home. And until I opened my heart, no one knew I was sick. So I lived a relatively normal life to the outsider. I was blessed beyond measure. My life could have been defined by my illness, and I could be depressed and sad and living in a bed or a wheelchair for that matter. And in some ways, it's because I've chosen to leap from the depths instead of drown in the depths of despair. I could be living in my bed in that wheelchair, like I mentioned. I chose to work hard. It wasn't easy at all. I worked really hard to be normal again. I didn't want my kids to have a sick mom. I chose to work through the pain, to go back to playing tennis, the sport that I love. I worked through a lot of pain there too. And when I started feeling depression setting in from all the weeks and then months, and then, I mean, my healing from that sepsis was over 2 years that I had to stay home and heal. I found a way to keep my brain engaged. I started a family blog, then a blog of my favorite things, and ultimately a blog about my health that led to my gaining confidence and sharing my heart here today. It forced me to long ago get crunchy and question the medical model that I was living and breathing by, quite literally, when the medical model wasn't helping me. I started a small business from my laptop twice when I had a hard stop in my life, where I met lifelong friends, taught myself computer design, challenged myself to learn and grow a business from home. I eventually got back into working in my field of occupational therapy because I so desperately wanted to stop thinking about myself. Everyone would ask me how I was, and I'm so grateful for that. But I didn't want to talk about myself all the time. I wanted to talk about other people. I wanted to help other people. I remember John looking at me one day and just tears running down his eyes, saying, Penny, I want us to be able to help other people the way everybody has helped us. I mean, we were just constantly on the receiving end, and while it's beautiful, it's a really hard place to be constantly receiving. So we feel that we have a life of giving ahead of us. We always want to bring that meal over or do whatever we need to do to help someone. But I decided to get back into OT when I started feeling a little bit better and feeling like I could go to work. And I ended up in a setting that I never worked before and I never dreamed I would want to work, is skilled nursing. But I was able to coach patients. It was amazing how patients would come to me through ostomies, brand new ostomies, which I had to deal with, through wound vacs. No one knew how to work a wound vac, and I did. Crohn's disease, abdominal surgeries, scar tissue issues. I mean, I have had it all, and it was so amazing that I got to be called on to help people through those situations, starting from when I went back to work in Texas all the way through here in Kansas. So the Lord literally gave me all the tools I needed to use my struggles to be able to help others, which is all I ever prayed for, is please let me be able to help others. And by doing so, I have been blessed at every single turn in my life. I watch for miracles. I expect miracles. I think that's something that we don't do anymore, but I expect miracles. Even though they're small, they're not huge, like an angel spoke to me, but there's little things that I believe that I don't believe in coincidence. I think God's timing is perfect. But when I wasn't getting the physical healing that I thought I deserved, I was completely unaware of the prayers that covered me through motherhood, survival of an incredibly debilitating disease. My prayers have been answered from the start. I just wasn't looking in the right direction. So that's the end of today. I think it got a little bit long, but next time we'll see what I can gather for you. I'll go back through my blogs and see what's next, and we'll get to a little bit more of my illness and my amazing miracles that happened as they came. Have a good day.